What's going on, everybody? It's the Hook Cam back again with my second episode of the draft recap. Today we are checking out the Washington Redskins. New face for this franchise, right? We got Ron Rivera coming in as the head coach. We got Jack Del Rio coming in as the defensive coordinator. And I think that they made some decent moves in this draft. I wasn't ultra impressed with this, but at the same time, what I do love about this draft is that Ron Rivera is making it known where his priorities are going to be, and it all starts with the first pick with Chase Young, right? 4-3 end. He's going to play at that edge spot for the Redskins. And originally going into this pick, I was kind of wondering, like, who are they going to go with? Because he doesn't necessarily fit with that 3-4. Well, if you dig a little bit deeper, you see Jack Del Rio as the defensive coordinator. Take a look back at the last time he was the head coach, or ran the show, I should say, for the Raiders, and they were running a 4-3. And I think that there's going to be some similarities between the way Chase Young plays and the way Khalil Mack plays as far as his pass rushing. I don't necessarily think Chase Young is going to be dropping back into coverage like Khalil Mack would do here and there, but at the same time, I think that the athleticism and the ability to make a good pass rush move, both of those things are going to be key factors in where Chase Young is going to play. I also made a Chase Young video about what he means to the Redskins and how he's going to fit in. I will link that in a little card here on the screen in just a second. So moving on to the second pick of the draft, and this is where I think a lot of people who are going to grade the draft are going to start to give a thumbs down for it, and they pick up Antonio Gibson from Memphis. I personally actually like this pick. I think that this dude is a playmaker, played receiver and running back in college at Memphis, and basically his whole deal was just find a way to get the ball in this kid's hands. And there's never going to be a situation of football where you look at, a loss, or you look at something that went wrong and you're like, well, the problem there was we just had too many athletes. Like, that's just not how things work. If you can get athletes and you can put them in space, whether that's running the rock or catching it or, blowing by dudes like he does in this clip, then you're going to want to do that. I mean, if this kid's running a double move, he's running a corner go really more than anything in that. And he takes off. And, this kid to me is just a stud. And I actually really liked this pick. I think that I liked it a lot more than a lot of the quote-unquote experts will. Now, when we start looking at what he did running the rock at Memphis, this is, a good example of what they would do. And it's, they have two backs. Sorry about the film on this. Two backs here, and they're just running a wide zone, right? They're just trying to stretch the defense. But his vision to cut this thing back is pretty exceptional. And there's a lot of guys out there who probably wouldn't see that, but he trusts his athleticism, he trusts his speed, and he gets the job done there. So I don't think that a lot of people will like that pick. I personally, though, I look at it and say, hey, if you can get more athletes, get more athletes. There's never going to be a problem with that. Now, the next pick, Sadiq Charles, you look at the loss of Trent Williams, and obviously that was a very toxic situation, and it's the right move to just move on, right? He doesn't want to be there. Redskins don't necessarily want him there. Just move on. Get what you can from him. Start fresh, and that's what they do with this pick with Sadiq Charles. Now, with Charles, I think that he's a very raw talent, but he can move people. This is him against Alabama, and we're moving dude. This kid can play. I think that he's very raw, though. I think that his pass pro needs some work, and this is just a very quick clip, and obviously I don't have the time to dive into every single game these kids have played, but with him in this clip, you can see he kind of turns his hips a little bit, gives that defensive end that soft edge. He strikes his hand right to the center of his chest. Luckily, he's got the strength to really sit in that chair and hold him off, but I do think that he does need to polish up his pass pro a little bit. Here's a good example of him, though, reading this twist, coming off the line. Just the little things like this, football IQ-wise, I like to see. Like I said, I think that this is going to end up being a good pick. Here's a clip of him against Auburn, and he's just, like I said, he can move dudes, and that's what you want with this team early. You want to be able to run the rock, and that kind of goes into having the Darius Geis, Adrian Peterson, and possibly Antonio Gibson in terms of being your playmakers in the backfield. But again, I do like this pick for the Redskins. I think that it's needed, and I'm happy that they made it. Like I said, you lose Trent Williams, and that's a very big loss. However, you do take the steps necessary to go and try and replace him. Now, moving on to this next pick, Antonio Golden Gandy. I think that he's going to be kind of the consensus sleeper for the Redskins, and you see all the draft hype videos beforehand, the receiver you've never heard of, like all that stuff with Antonio Golden Gandy, and it's true, like I've never heard of him, and the kid's got some serious talent, so I mean, I guess it makes sense. I like this pick, and I think that one of the spots where the Redskins are lacking is at the receiver spot. Obviously, you have Scary Terry. I love Scary Terry McLaurin. I think that he's a stud. I'm very happy that he popped off last season. You got the Ohio State connection with him and Dwayne Haskins. Awesome. Love everything about it. Now we need to go and we need to add some more weapons, and we see this kid run just a quick little slant right there. Love the break in off the line of scrimmage. He stems him on that third route. I do like this route a lot from him. And again, it's all about getting athletes in space, right? If they're going to lock us up one-on-one on the outsides, and we're going to take advantage of it. And his quarterback play at Liberty was not the greatest, but again, we see clips like this where he's making catches on the sideline, and it's tough to not look at this and say, man, there's really something special here. There's a one-handed grab on the sideline, 2 feet in. That's a pro catch. And then this is actually from the same drive. So he makes that first catch, like I think they ran one running play, got stuffed for a loss of 1, and then they go right back to him, right? And this kid was really kind of the lifeline for Liberty from what it seems. And again, that's a lofted back shoulder, tough ball to throw, tough ball to catch, but he just goes up and gets it 3 plays in a row. And there's some serious talent with this kid, and I'm excited to see what he can do at the pro level because I think he has a ton of potential. And again, just give Dwayne Haskins weapons. Let QBs go and make dudes look good, right? But they can only do so much, and especially with a young quarterback. You know, Dwayne Haskins finished the year very strong last year, but back-to-back games, 2 touchdowns, no picks. Like I said, you have to give your quarterbacks weapons. You have to give them the opportunity to prove to you that these kids can ball. And not only is that with receivers, but it's also with offensive line. Hell of a transition there for me. Keith Ishmael, San Diego State. He's the center here now. San Diego State, I'm a Southern California guy. I'm very familiar with San Diego State, and they can pound the rock. They put out great offensive linemen. I absolutely love this clip right here from number 60. He's Keith Ishmael. He's the center. Now, obviously, if you play center in college, you're going to be able to transition to guard. I know that a lot of people want to pigeonhole like center or guard or left guard or right guard. No. When you get to the league, when you get to Division I college football or D2, whatever, you can play basically any spot on the offensive line. Obviously, you want your tackles to be a little bit bigger, but like centers and guards are they can do anything, right? And so 60 here on this play, we're working to that that 1 tech. Looks like he spikes, so we work right up to this next level. I just love the awareness from him. He's traveling with the base. He's striking eyes below the linebacker's eyes. He does some very good fundamental things on the offensive line, and that's really encouraging to see going into this Redskins offense. Moving on to the next pick from the Redskins, we have Kalechi Hudson from Michigan, and now he's listed as a linebacker. I personally see him as more of a safety type. He's a little bit smaller. He moves very, very well. And like I said, I think that he's more of like an in-the-box safety. Michigan wasn't afraid to throw him in coverage, which is a really good sign. Here he is on tape. He's number 7. I should probably say that so we're not just staring at nothing. I do think he hesitates a little bit in the running game, and we see this play right here. We know it's getting handed off. We got to attack this, and that's kind of the one thing. And again, I don't know the ins and outs of that defense. Maybe he's staying pat for an RPO game. Maybe, Io is showing some stuff like that where the quarterback shows and then he's hitting that slant. But you would like to see a little bit more aggressiveness out of Kalechi Hudson. But overall, this kid's an athlete. And like I said before with the offense, it's the same thing with the defense. Kalechi Hudson is definitely an athlete. Coming up and making the play on this, like I said, I think that he can turn into something good for the Redskins, but again, it's all about just putting guys in the right position. Moving on to this next pick for the Redskins, they picked up Cameron Curl, safety from Arkansas. Now, people kind of want to dub him like a strong safety, like a heavy hitter. I think that he can do a little bit of both. I mean, he ran a pretty good 40 at the combine. He ran a 4.6, but his bench press was also off the charts, bench press 24 times, which is a great sign from him. And at Arkansas, when you watch this film, he does both, right? And so the way that they play their defense, from what I notice, is that they'll have him start off in a 2-high look, and then they'll roll one way or the other, right? And so he is, obviously experienced rolling down into the box, or he's got experience rolling deep. He's got a little honey badger in him too, and I don't mean like Tyrann Mathieu. Honey badger, it's just kind of a term that I'm using in terms of like he just go gets it, man. Like he's always flying around, he's always laying the wood, he's always looking for that turnover. This is a great example of him playing against LSU, right? Working up through that catch point, knocking that ball away, not getting flagged for a PI. I just think that the kid, there's something to him, and I think that he can work into, possibly a rotational role with the Redskins. But it's all about how he does in preseason camp, all that stuff. Always picking up the defense. So, moving on to this next pick from North Carolina State, we got James Smith-Williams, bigger body guy. I like this pick, but I think that he's untapped potential again, and I think that this kid is a guy who needs to be coached up a little bit. He needs that pro coaching, right? In college, you can get away with just being a freak athlete, and not necessarily that he's, just going out there playing no technique, because he does. This is a great example of that, right? He's number one here playing at the left end. And what he does on this that I really like is that arm extension right here. Boom, that arm extension right there. He's got his eyes on the football. He's going to come in and make a play on it. I love that. He's also squeezing that gap down. He's a good football player. He really is. And I think that there, like I said, there's some potential. He does a good job of extending that arm, right? Extending his arms on contact with the offensive lineman, getting eyes into the backfield, shedding and making a play. I think that he can dive a little bit deeper, though. I think he can be a little bit more aggressive. And again, it could have been the defense that they were playing in North Carolina State, where he was more of a read and react guy in terms of, his aggressiveness. But like I said, 7th rounder, there's something there with him, though. Again, it's all about the coaching. How much can they polish him up? Now, moving on to the undrafted guys. They signed a number of undrafted guys. The quarterback from Colorado, Montez. They signed a receiver. But the one guy that I really do want to hit on, and one of my favorite players, and if you've watched some of my other videos, I'm an LSU guy. I don't really have a college team, and I don't want to dive too much into this, but I did love LSU last year. I love the way they played. I wasn't shocked to see Thaddeus Moss go undrafted because he doesn't have that size, but at the same time I was, because I think he has some great abilities as far in terms of blocking and catching the football. Here's an example of them running inside zone here, and Thaddeus Moss just works up to the 2nd level and he's able to wall this thing off, and it doesn't look like a ton, but that's a tough block to make when you're in open space like that. And he does a good job of it, locking on, staying locked on throughout the duration of this thing, and then falling with him at the end. No problem with that. And then this is another skill that I think is overlooked, right? This ability to cut is really key. It really is, and I don't think a lot of people know that, but he's working up. You know what I love about this, though? A lot of guys, when they go to cut, first step, boom, their shoulders are at where their hips are, and they're just diving. You got to sell this thing a little bit, and that's exactly what he does here. And a lot of the cuts that I saw on tape from Thaddeus Moss, he's getting dudes on the ground, and that's a very valuable trait in the NFL. And I think that I really do I hope, at least I hope that he finds a home on this Redskins team, and I hope that he does well. Here's an example of him just fighting off this press, right? This is something that you look at guys from the Big 12, Big 10, they don't have this experience of a cornerback pressed in their face, right, like you do in the SEC. He's able to pop that thing off, get off of it, and then he's the safety valve for Joe Burrow. And he did this game in and game out for LSU. And I really do think this kid is talented. He's not necessarily going to be a burner after the catch, although he did show some pretty good speed. But I think that his possession skills, I think that his ability to be a safety valve for a quarterback can go a long way. So I'd really, really like to see Thaddeus Moss make that football team, but we'll see what happens. So anyway, guys, I'm the Hook Cam. Hope that you enjoyed this draft recap. Like I said, I think that a lot of so-called experts are going to be hating on this draft, and they weren't the sexiest picks out of the Redskins, but at the same time I think that they addressed the needs that they wanted to. They made some decent moves in free agency to help that secondary, and it's clear that this team is going to be built through the front 7, which is again something that they supported through the draft. So with all that being said, guys, I'm the Hook Cam. If you could hit that like button, hit that subscribe button to my channel, as well as the Jackson Kruger Sports, that would mean the world to both of us. Hope everybody's having a good day, staying safe. That's all I got for you guys today, and I will see you next time.